Go.
Good evening, everybody. We're being videotaped for Facebook Live, so that's why the prompt.
Yeah.
My name is John Ficar. I am the Vice President of the SFTA. I have with me several other members of the SFTA that I'm very proud to serve with. I have Tammy Kennedy, who is our President and has been for the last 2 years. We have John McLaughlin, who's a board member as well as chairman of the events for 2019 and beyond. I have Kelly Boyle over here, who is founder and promoter of Tech Talent Fest, which we run, will run March of 2019. Opportunities, students, experienced technologists, together with businesses. We ran it at Nova University last year. It was a big success, and we plan to run it again March of 2019. 500
open positions.
Okay. Last year we had 500 open positions. Who knows, next year we probably will have even more. Also, we want to thank our sponsors who have made all this possible. First, what I'd like to do is bring up Dean for the donation of the space and for the support of the SFTA over the years.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much. It is a pleasure for us and a satisfaction to make possible and host, talk a little bit about Kaiser University. Since 1977, Kaiser University College, and now university, offering programs that range from associate degrees all the way to PhD programs. The programs are intended to prepare students for entry into career-oriented jobs. And we are very excited to, this year, I am the director of those two programs. It's a Master of Science in Information Technology Leadership and the Master of Science in Information Security. We are trying to create a community, develop a community that remains here in Florida, and in particular in this Tri-County area, and more in particular within this area of Pembroke Pines, Miramar, and adjacent areas. And we would like to invite pretty much every company, organization, to give the university an opportunity to host any kind of event. We make, as you can see, available to you all these facilities, pretty much no charge. And I want to mention also, this event is possible because of an initial contact that I made with ASIS approximately a year ago in an event similar to this. And it has taken a year, but the results are palpable right now. And this is what we want to continue developing throughout the years and make possible a name recognition for Kaiser as an opportunity for organizations to continue expanding their, I was going to say workforce, but for lack of, but their talent. And to give us also an opportunity to present a platform for discussion, analysis, and presentation of new technologies and new opportunities for the students, for the community, and for organizations in general. I really would like to thank everybody, the SFTA, to give us this opportunity, and all of you for participating here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dean. The SFTA and Kaiser University actually have a long history going back, not just at this location, but some of the other Kaiser University locations. And we're very grateful to Kaiser for their support of the SFTA. And speaking of support of the SFTA, we could not run these types of events without the help of and the financial support of our wonderful sponsors. So since you're the first one here, I'd like to introduce Nikki Barona from Consultus. And I will embarrass her a little bit and tell you that Nikki has joined my marketing committee, and she's quite a talent. And we hope that she will join the SFTA in a board capacity soon.
Hi. So, as John said, I'm actually helping with the marketing committee now. And so I'm actually, before I can get into my company, what I do day job, I'm going to try to recruit some of you. So if I annoy you later and kind of talk to you, I actually need help. So if there's anybody that has any skills, PR, marketing, I mean, even if you just have, like me, just an interest in it, I'm not professionally trained, marketing director or anything like that, I could definitely use some help on our committee. So if you need it, my cards are over at the sponsor table for Consultus. But to talk a little bit about our company, Consultus is, I think it's our 34th birthday. couple months ago, it's our anniversary. It's a woman-owned company, and we're headquartered in Boca Raton, but like for instance, my area is all of South Florida. So I basically do all the way from North Palm Beach all the way through Miami. But if we also have other offices in like the Northeast, in Dallas, Texas. If you guys have, if you have like subsidiary companies or other, offices in other areas, we can help with that as well. Basically, we work in all of the IT capacities. So we don't do, any other, HR, finance, or any kind of staffing like that. But if you need help desk all the way through CIO level and everything in between, we can help with that. And we do offer, whether it's contract to hire, direct hire. We do work on a contingent basis as well, so that way you guys don't have to do some sort of retainer. It's all free until we find you somebody that you actually want to move forward with. I don't want to take up too much time, so it'll be salesy. So if anybody has any questions, you know where to find me, and I can definitely help at answer any questions or kind of talk to you guys later through email or whatever works for you. All right.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to bring up Adriana Duque from ProSource IT.
I'm totally winging this, by the way. Sorry.
You'll be great.
So my name is Adriana Duque. I'm the Managing Director of ProSource IT. And similar to her, we're an IT staffing company that does temp to perm, permanent IT, all the way from help desk to CIO level. So I hate to repeat, but that's what we do. What we're really known for and what we're really proud of lately is just 2 years ago, technology is moving so quickly, we really can't keep up, we can't validate skill sets. So if a lot of you are hiring managers out there who are frustrated because, you can't find and identify a good person, whether that be HR or a recruiting company, I'm going to share you a quick video on what we provide to our organizations now for free. It's a value on service, but we have 2,500 subject matter experts in different disciplines, in all different technologies to do the interviewing for us. And we provide you a 45-minute interview, a scorecard, and a resume when you engage with us. So I'm just going to let you see kind of like the demo. We got the faces fuzzed out just for demo purposes. So you're ready?
You did test this all the time.
Test the demo.
We still understand what is going on.
We can hear it.
Why?
Yeah.
I can kind of explain it, I guess. As you can see, this is the interviewer and the interviewee, and it could be, DevOps engineers, mean stack developers, Java, .NET, architects. The person who's interviewing has, between 5 to 10 to 15 years experience, and they're interviewing the interviewing. We got coding on the spot. We got whiteboarding on the spot. It's really cool. We piloted it with one of the largest employers here, Ultimate Software. Is anybody here with Ultimate? No? And they loved it, and it's just now writers using it, Cardinal is using it. So we're really excited about it, and we hope that I'll pass on my card. So if you guys need us to help you with that, we'll be more than happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. So next I would like to introduce Pat Geiger from Cloud. Pat.
Thank you. So somebody said earlier this week, I was at a conference on Monday, you can't have a good tech conference without a tech issue. So here we are, repeats. I'm with Cloud Adhesive. We're a local cloud services company located in Fort Lauderdale. I'm myself here. There's another Patrick Hanna, is our VP of Technology. He'll be sitting in on the panel later on. So As I mentioned, we're headquartered here in Fort Lauderdale. We provide cloud services. We try to remain cloud agnostic. I've got Amazon Web Services here on my sleeve. And so we're an advanced consulting partner with Amazon Web Services, or AWS, and as well as a managed services partner with them as well. So what we do is we help small, medium, and also very large, and we work with very large companies, and we help them to make that transition into the cloud. There's a lot of apprehension, they're worried about security, and we sort of look at it as we take them by the hand and we show them our proven methodologies to move them into the cloud. And we set up the correct architecture, we stabilize everything, provide security controls once we get them in the cloud. We also provide manage and monitoring that they can see in real time and have visibility to that, and stabilize everything, and then we can manage it on their behalf once we move everything into the cloud for them. Again, we're here in Fort Lauderdale, but we have a big presence nationwide. We have clients basically nationwide. We have a few outside of the U.S. as well. And we have a table out here, so feel free to drop by and say hello, grab a bit. Magnets, yes, and we do sponsor the AWS meetups throughout the state of Florida, and we have them regularly, about once a month, as far south as Doral, Miami Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Boca, and then also into northern Florida as well, Orlando, Tampa, and Jacksonville. My counterpart in northern Florida runs those, so look at those AWS Users Group meetups. They're fun. Come out, have some beer, have some pizza. They're sort of, they're very informal, but you can walk away saying that you really learned something. So we do have a meetup coming up October 4th at Bank United over here in Miami Springs, their headquarters office. And then we've got the follow-up in November at Modernizing Medicine in Boca. So we're all over the place. And then, of course, if you're in northern Florida, look at those meetups as well. So again, Cloud Adhesive, Fort Lauderdale based. We provide cloud services and security controls around that. And people say, well, what do you guys do? Someone asked me earlier, actually, what do you guys do different that Amazon can't do? Well, Amazon won't go into a medium or even a large company and work and get their, we're the ones that get our hands dirty. So we'll actually come in, we'll architect things correctly, and we'll provide not only AWS security controls, but also third-party controls, best-of-breed technologies to protect your data in the cloud. That's your responsibility, as well as the managing and monitoring of everything that's in the cloud. So again, feel free to ask myself, Pat, or Patrick if you have any questions. And do go to our website, cloudadhesive.com. Feel free to download some of the case studies that we have there, some fantastic case studies. One really cool company that's based here in Sunrise called eBuilder. They've been with us many, many years, and we were able to take eBuilder from a data center into the cloud, manage everything for them. And you may have seen earlier in the year where eBuilder was purchased for 10 times revenue, or $500 million on a $50 million revenue. So we like to think that we had a hand in that, and that we added to that strategy, and but we didn't get anything from that. So, but thanks again, and should be a good night.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it. So Pat made a reference, and I want to thank Cloud Adhesive. They have been a sponsor of many SFTA events. They've also been corporate members. And I don't know if you know much about the SFTA, and I see some familiar faces and a lot of new faces as well. But we like to think, one of the premier technology associations in South Florida. We've been doing this for 17 years. Our mission is to bring together technologists in the South Florida market to create a tech ecosystem that supports businesses, universities, and individuals in an effort to make the tech community stronger down here. We do it through monthly events such as this, through quarterly events such as, if you've ever attended IT Palooza, it's an event that we do at the Broward Convention Center. We get between 1,500 and 1,700 attendees walk through that show. It's going to be December 13th of this year. There are sponsorship opportunities available, as well as speaker opportunities. So if you feel like your company has a product that fits our speaker track, and you have an expert within your company that would be interested in speaking, we encourage you to go onto our website, and you'll see links in there for sponsorships, as well as for speaking engagements. You'll have to fill out a form and list your history and experience, and you will be evaluators. The website, by the way, is southfloridatech.org. Memberships. We do sell individual memberships. For $200 a month, you get discounts. I'm sorry, a year. That makes it sound like a better deal now, right? So $200 a year, you get an individual membership. It allows you the ability to attend these events as a member with a discount. It also allows you to list yourself on our website in the membership directory area. You can promote your company through there. We put your logo up there with your information and a link to your company's website. And there are many other benefits of individual membership as well as corporate memberships. I'll just encourage you to go on the site to learn more. So I thank you for listening to the presentations. I want to bring up to the stage here at this point, Steve Malek, who is he is on our advisory council. He's been a long-term member of the SFTA. He came to us with this idea, and we love the concept, and we thank Asa for everything that he's done for us.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for coming here. As John said, it takes a long time to do an event like this. I really appreciate everybody for coming here, and I really appreciate all the panel members that are here today. But the main thing that I wanted to say and add to what has already been said about Kaiser University is that a year ago I talked to them that we want to do an event where we want to bring the universities and the industry together and closer, and so that students can learn and industry can learn from students. So it is really happening now. Kaiser has worked very closely with South Florida Technology Alliance, and finally this event. I really want to thank Kaiser University for making this happen. The other next thing is that we have, before I go into the event and the talk that we have today, I want to introduce Henshin. Henshin is my business partner also. By the way, if you don't know me, I am Asif Malik. I am in South Florida for 20 years. I do consulting, software consulting, and I work with the industry all over here. Hinson is my business partner. This is a company that has come in here from Colombia. They are expert in software development. DHL is their partner here already. TIPCO is their partner. Colbert is their partner. They're providing services in software development, in business intelligence, in Salesforce. They are really expert. I've been there. I've seen their campus. This is really the company, if anybody needs the services, to work with. With that, I want to bring Santiago Gil. He is the chief architect in Hinson. He will tell us more about it.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks for the presentation. I'm very glad to be here. As I was telling you, I came from Colombia to this event and many other things, but I'm really interested in telling you about our company and telling you about the things we can do together. I'll be in the panel as well, so please ask hard questions on us to make it interesting, of course. We are a Colombian company. We are one of the most important companies in Colombia for IT services. We've been in the market for 40 years, and we have been around 8 years here in the US and providing projects all across Latin America. Basically, we are 700 employees now, and we do many interesting things like the DMV projects in Colombia, more than 500,000 hours of software development per year, some projects, and a lot of work in the financial services sector. We provide services and we do projects all across Latin America, mainly financial services, and we do plenty interesting stuff. Not only in the things we are going to cover later on microservices, but as well in analytics, integrations, and Salesforce. We work in many different areas, many different areas of expertise. Basically, all the good stuff, all the techy stuff that we like. We work natively in the cloud, not only in Amazon, in Azure, but as well Google, Oracle, IBM, Salesforce, etc. Of course, all the demos we will see later in the session. We will discuss a lot around these topics, around agility, around the visibility, all the techy stuff needed to deliver real projects, big end projects. So basically, we have worked in many sectors, many areas, government, international, financial sectors. You can see we are a robust company. We would like to work with you. So I'll give the word to Asif, so we can start the panel.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, there is one more goal that we are trying to achieve with this. We are, South Florida Technology Alliance has always worked to create good events, as John introduced already, that we create events every month. But one of the things that we are trying from SFTA platform is to introduce more technology events so that we bring into the stage more people who really have what we call the hands in the engine. So this is one of that, a part of that series where we are going to be discussing. The panel that we have is really the technical people. So
Class.
So we have a very exciting panel today. We have Nadeem Akhtar sitting here. He represents a software development company, AAJ, that has got itself known in a very short time. And he is representing the development firm in this panel. Then we have Zhong Zhang. He is representing our telecom industry. He is from TrackPhone. And then we have Santiago Gale, of course, representing the development firm from Henson. And then we have Cloud Adhesive, Patrick. Patrick is representing the cloud technologies. With that, I want, bringing the panel here, I ask you to please welcome this exciting panel, and we will have a very exciting discussion. Please. We can sit anywhere we want because there is no really. One of the things that I was observing that more people are now that it is kind of balanced, right? So I was thinking that more people were going like political right here. So maybe it's a little bit of a dimension, but now it's balanced, so I'm happy about that. Okay. Okay, so as we said, our main topic for discussion today is microservices technology. What is happening and what software development is going through? What is this change that is bringing in, and what is the new stuff that's coming in software development, and specifically the microservices technology that is a buzzword everywhere. And we will be discussing, and first thing that I want to start with the panel is that, as I said, is the buzzword, right? Is it really a buzzword, or we are seeing that microservices are bringing in something new, something that really exciting, something that has far-reaching consequences and what it's bringing to the table. So with that, first thing, and before that, I would really, when you go on to the question, first if you can introduce yourself, please. I have already introduced, but I think your words are better, right?
Okay, I will start by answering your question on what I think about these new buzzwords, because we have buzzwords all the time. I think at the end of the day, everything is about innovation, and the innovation is the force that drives IT all the way around. That's what I think about that. So at the end of the day, we have innovation, they're pulling and pulling, and the IT has to deliver, and IT has to find the ways to deliver. That's how I see it, and microservices is one of the things that is built because of innovation. So we need the modularity, we need the flexibility, we need resilience, we need scalability, which are like the main things that is providing all the microservices stuff. But at the end of the day, we need to innovate, we need to improve our day-to-day life. Our day-to-day life, not only for the customer, but for the people inside here, inside IT. So innovation is the force, and we are there to support it. And of course, microservices will give us tools now in order to provide that and to go further on that. We need to take all the business value we give to the user a bit further, and microservices, of course, is a very, very good tool for that. I don't know what your view.
Thank you. My name is Nadeem Akhtar. Before I start and answer the question, I want to tell you something very important. Actually, it's a feedback a lot of people have given to me. And to be honest, everyone says the same thing, that I have an accent. The funny thing is I don't hear it, so I'll try to,
As long as you have microservices.
so I'll try to speak slow and clearly. I don't think so it's just a buzzword. As my friend mentioned, a lot of companies like Amazon, eBay, Netflix, PayPal, Twitter, they are already using microservices. They saw the value. They are ahead of the curve. So I think we need to go into that route. We are seeing a lot of value among our customers. Second part is the impact from that technology. So whether you should do in your company or not. So this is more like a question for you. Are you frustrated whenever you deploy something and it breaks something else? Or your business is concerned that the time to market is increased significantly? Or you are behind from your competition? Nowadays, people say you need to look your competition as a floor, not as a ceiling. Meaning you always need to produce more than what your competition is doing. So with those things, I would say microservices are playing a huge role, whether you develop within your organization or whether you can use it from outside. So those are my 2 cents. I hope this makes sense.
But does it also mean, and as for the interest of general audience, maybe not everybody is really part of software well. It's really getting the things smaller, right? Dividing the software into bigger pieces, smaller pieces, more manageable, more flexible, right?
Exactly. So basically, the idea is we used to build software, monolithic software. Lot of time we used to build in-house softwares, right? That's still the case. But if you look at the landscape, more and more companies are coming up with new ideas. 5-10 years ago, who thought about Salesforce or other big CRM systems? But now everyone is going Salesforce, Dynamic, Workday, ServiceNow, all those kind of services. So they see the value. But if we start making smaller services, we can start using those smaller pieces in our organization. And another trend we are seeing is that sometimes you have a unique offering. You're using it to your company, you can actually sell that as a service. So you develop that service, wrap it with an API, and then you can create products. So there are tools available for the API management, where you can create different products and you can sell them. You can create contracts. You can say, okay, this is a basic contract. Someone can make 100 calls a day, or this is a premium contract. One can make 100,000 calls a day, and those things are being governed and managed by the gateways. So those are some of the things. So I think like we are enjoying it. I'm very excited using the microservices. I've been using so long, I think like in different forms, but now it is much mature. The gentleman mentioned e-builder here, like the company was sold for, from 50 million revenue like to 500 million. So we were providing development services. So brief introduction, we are in business for like over 25 years, I think, in South Florida. So if you have any need, come and see us. Thank you.
Well, John, especially we had a brief discussion before, and I'm more excited because Tom, you are more like don't do it, right? It's not.
Well, not really. Don't do it. Okay.
Because I really want somebody in that position, right?
Yes, but I'm not really opposition.
Okay.
So my name is Zong Yang. I'm from China. I've been here for since 1992. So I spent actually most of my life in Miami area. So for the last 17 years, I've been working for a company called Trifon Wireless. Lots of you probably use, we have 10 brands. You might be using one of those phones. But if you have a problem, don't come to me, call the 1-800 number. So regarding whether microservice is a buzzword, people mention, it's linked to buzzwords. That means there's a hype related to it. Just like any technology, it goes through the hype curve, right? From everybody say, oh, this thing is so cool, everybody should be using it. And then it gets maturity and then become a truly valuable tool for people to use. And my opinion on microservices is really, is it a good tool? It's a good tool for a certain purpose. It's just like, recently I bought a Tesla. I was telling my wife, oh, this is the best car ever, right? But do you want to, use your Tesla as a school bus? Probably not. And it would not fit more than 3-4 kids on there. And the other thing is that at what point do you want to jump into the technology and start using it? Microservice, when it first came out, lots of people talking about, oh, look, Netflix is using it. And people even show, Netflix show their microservice architecture diagram in YouTube videos and everywhere. If you go on YouTube, if you go on Google and search for microservice, search Netflix, you're going to see lots of interesting diagrams. For some of the Java developers, you probably recognize those diagrams. Those diagrams, in the old days, you look at it, you'll be ashamed of having an architecture like that, because they're showing you something that it's more point-to-point integration, right? So when it scales, we're talking about breaking a monolithic application into small pieces. And that means you have, in the past, when you had a monolithic application, we're saying point-to-point integration is that. And now you break one piece into 1,000 pieces, and you connect them point to point. You can imagine how you can scale that, how you can manage that. But it doesn't mean microservice is bad. Over the years, it improved. So now, in the last a few years, with new technology coming on, developed by Google, IBM, and Lyft, so there's a new stack that supports you to run microservice a lot better. For example, Google's Kubernetes. Kubernetes can help you to manage Docker containers. Before you have Kubernetes that can help you to orchestrate the Docker containers, you can break your application into 1,000 pieces. And then they tell you, wow, you can scale each piece independently. Now you have 1,000 pieces that's independent, scaling themselves independently. How are you going to measure it? How are you going to monitor it? When something goes wrong, how do you troubleshoot? So those things are coming together with the new technologies. So, so I'm not against microservice. It has its place, and the most important thing is that don't always jump unless you're like Netflix. Netflix, they have their engineers to help them to work through all the challenges, all the problems they create by using a new technology. But for most of the companies, you don't have that resource to do that. So it's a good idea to wait until it's mature. And in my opinion, microservice is getting its maturity level there, but it doesn't mean you should, it's a Tesla. You don't want it to use that as a school bus.
That's it. Don't use Tesla as a school bus.
Yes. Maybe one day they're going to make a Tesla school bus. That would be
So hi everyone, I'm Patrick Hanna, as you all know by now. For me, microservices is both a buzzword and has deeper and more consequential impact. We see this every few years, right? Cloud, DevOps, go back further, object-oriented programming, right? They're all somewhat abstract concepts that are really meant to act as a framework. And especially with the microservices, you have a slight cost barrier to entry, right? We were talking earlier, and maybe you need a very simple application just to do something. Well, you don't need to really think through, the architecture of microservices. Just do what you need to do. But if you're developing an app that it's going to need to scale, you're going to need to rapidly iterate through features, functionality, public-facing maybe. Maybe you're monetizing. That's the point where you want to start to consider your architecture and maybe move more towards a microservices model. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Okay, just to kind of expand on what we have just said, that it's not really a buzzword and it's microservices, smaller pieces. As we are defining this, I would like to, before going to what we are doing and understanding what you all are doing in your company, before that, I would like to understand a little bit more that why we are going smaller. In general, it makes sense. In general, it makes sense that you do bigger pieces, easy to manage, right? And then easy to deploy, and it kind of connects to the life too. I mean, if you have to deal with too many things, right, it's going to be difficult. But if you have to deal with one big thing, that is so why software industry looks like going to the direction of creating so many thousands of smaller pieces and thinks that is more manageable. I know you want to speak that, but this time I want to give a little bit, Patrick.
Because I have a say on what
you really have something in it. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. The other day I was speaking with a guy at Amazon Web Service on product development, the one that are doing the engineering that the product we use. And he was telling me, how does innovation works at Amazon? He told me very simple things that supported the idea of microservices. He told me, look, product development at Amazon is organized in small groups. The idea of a group that you can fit with 2 pizzas. That's the type of group. That is 10 people at much, 15 people at much. Those are not that big groups for such a big product like Amazon. So each of these groups work on a piece of Amazon. You know that Amazon is full there of sub-products. And then each of these groups was doing development, of course, product marketing, product commercialization, user experience with the product. So operations of that product. So they would operate the product that we use. So in that sense, they need to be very integrated in that group, but they need to speak very well with the other parts of Amazon. So it's like a small organization with 2 pizzas, 15 people, 10 people, but need to speak very well with the rest of the organization because there are hundreds of this type of groups. So you need what? You need that the technology provides modularity, that the technology gives you, like this resilience that the microservices gives, that the technology gives you the idea of you be able to develop your piece, do your part very well, not only on development, but as well on operations. So it's like a very interesting concept that, of course, makes the organization more innovative. They are closer to the user because of that. They are like managing their infrastructure very, very well, and of course, their time to market is awesome.
So there's a way to make it small and easy.
Exactly. Make it smaller and sexy.
Okay, should I go back to
We can
Patrick?
move back
Yeah.
around.
Okay.
I think you raised a great point. Thousands of pieces, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sure we've all experienced the need to do some form of troubleshooting, right? Technology is ingrained in our lives. And in some ways, you know, taking a problem and breaking it up into smaller pieces allowed you to come to a conclusion.
And I would interrupt you.
Yeah.
It really is hard to have, like, that is one and 1,000, right?
Yes.
And it's hard, so why does it make sense, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was a point Zong had made in the previous item is so you've got these smaller pieces that are maybe easier to troubleshoot, but when the whole thing's not working, where do you begin? And again, you've got these supporting technologies or enabling technologies like Kubernetes. You also have, you know, very rich and powerful metrics and log management platforms that give you that single pane of view. So you're able to more pinpoint where things are failing. But I think more importantly is when we step back and look at how you know, microservices-based sites and applications may have previously been built, and some of the challenges that those organizations experience with more monolithic applications. You had problems with scale, right? So, you know, hopefully you have an app that you know, becomes highly demanded and your user base grows. You know, you're looking at scalability different, larger, less hardware but bigger hardware in that traditional model. Whereas microservices, you can adopt more of a distributed pattern. The same for the different stacks and the different tiers, right? So whereas previously, you know, it was maybe a 2 or 3 tier app, front end, back end, web and app servers, and database, some sort of persistence layer. You know, you were able to break those up into, you know, very service-oriented, service-specific solutions. And then again, you know, back to the scalability point is in the two pizza team concept. You know, when you have these large monolithic applications and you need to do releases, those are painful. Testing is painful. You know, it's very much still, you know, almost waterfall-like. Your speed to deliver is somewhat constrained. Because you go through that test cycle, you go through that very complex deployment cycle. You update the app first, you update the DB first. You know, oops, there is some miscommunication between the two teams, things like that. So I think we're solving a lot of challenges that way with microservices. And you know, the direction the technology and apps are going in is a driver for that.
The reason lots of the companies started using microservices is more because of agile methodology, right? So because business are constantly requiring new features, new changes, it's always easier to change a small piece instead of changing a large piece. So microservice, when you only have to touch one piece, you don't have to change everything and do the deployment, that fits the agile very well. But then again, when you look at the overall system, my background is architecture, right? So when you look at the overall architecture, when you have lots of two pizza teams and each working independently, you're going to face a challenge long term. You ask someone, hey, who knows how the whole system works together? If you watch some of the, again, Netflix video, because they're the poster child of microservice, and their director tells you, say, well, we're getting to the point in the company, nobody knows how exactly the whole thing works together, right? So that point to, microservice may fit like Netflix very well, but if you are a bank, you have a financial system you need to manage. Do you really want very, very, very agile system, like developer constantly changing your money transfer systems, you do continuous integration, continuous deployment? Maybe not for your whole system. So the methodology, it's not one size fit all, right? Agile methodology and the microservice, they fit very well for your presentation tier. But for your system of record tier, those layers you want to probably have a more control, more governance in place. You want a very well designed system, and those systems, the financial system and your human resource system, those things run your backend. You probably don't want to replace them every 2 years, right? And you're going to keep them by a commercial system and keep them for a long time. But then at the same time, you want to have innovation. The innovation, that's one you need to have a different tier that runs at different speed. For your presentation tier, or your, like, usually, you have a system of record. If you look at Gartner, they are pushing for what they call the pace layers of the architecture. Pace layer, because different layer, they run release at different pace. System of record and a system of differentiation, and then system of innovation. System of differentiation, that's a layer you change faster than the system of record. That layer, you still, that's the gray area. Microservices probably begin to play certain roles. When you get to the system of innovation, that layer, you're not touching your financial transaction. You're just touching customer experience. You are trying to track the customer behavior. You're looking at, for example, cross-channel experience. You're picking up the transaction from the web. When the customer goes to the phone, you know they've been to the web, and you take different actions based on the customer journey. Those layers, you are not touching very critical information. It's just a customer journey. Let's say the customer went to the web, their transaction failed. You failed to pick up on IVR, no big deal. You are going to start over again, ask the customer the same question again. But if you get that technology to work, you can very quickly introduce new functionalities. The customer experience is going to allow you to compete with other companies. So the microservice and the traditional more, I would not say monolithic application. I never liked a monolithic application. I would say more coarse-grained systems. They all have their place.
Thank you. Are we allowed to tell jokes?
Sure.
Okay, micro jokes. There was this doctor, he came in, and he saw, a patient was leaning on the wall, hardly breathing. And I don't know, what's going on. He went inside and asked the doctor what happened. He said, this patient had really bad cough. He said, okay. And he said, I gave him some medicine which causes diarrhea. He said, for cough patient, diarrhea medicine? He said, is he coughing now?
Okay.
So he provided the solution, but was that the right solution? Right? You need to think about those things, right? Microservice is not a silver bullet solution for everything, like a lighter note, right? So we have been using monolithic architecture. It has its own benefits. Microservices has its own challenges. When you break it apart, as my friends mentioned, it's like what they say, the analogy is that physical machines are more like cows, and then cattle, for example, and then VMs are more like pets, and these microservices are like pests. So you know how difficult it is to manage pests. So use them intelligently, I would say. You need to know the pros and cons before you step into that.
Thank you. So smart is beautiful, easy to test,
easy to replace, right? Be careful.
But we are aligned with some. If you need speed and go to market,
Yeah.
it's a good thing for microservices. If you need stability, it's not a good idea.
Sure.
It's,
Okay.
that's,
Okay, with that, now that we understand more, right, what it is and why we need to do it, our main question is just to learn from your own experience. Obviously, you are really industry, and you really have what we call always hands dirty. You have your hands in the engine. How would you share, especially 1, 2, 3 main implementations that you have done related to microservices in your company, in your life, so that our audience can know? Who wants to go first?
Thank you. So I'll give you a few, maybe like a couple of examples. In one example, one of our customers wanted to improve the customer experience. So they had data stored into 13 different systems. So imagine, if we create one monolithic architecture, that would be very difficult to change. And it was a long project. By the time you finish everything, some system might have been replaced. For example, they had in-house CRM, and they were thinking to go, commercial SaaS-based CRM. So by the time you finish, something that changed. Or what if they want to have like 14 systems, right? Or the in-house system implementation is changed. So it was very beneficial for us to break it down to small microservices, which were responsible to get the data out of those systems, fetch into another system which was responsible for data cleansing and augmentation, and then feed it to the marketing engine. That went really well. Other example is that we have clients using like monolithic architecture. As you know, most of us are using monolithic architecture. So they took some pieces out of those monolithic architecture for like eligibility calls, and they created microservice. I would say, like, if you want to start, the best thing would be to start with a stateless service that is much easier to manage as opposed to a stateful service. Now, third part is like companies such as MuleSoft, they are providing, the layered approach. As Zong mentioned that there are layers. So basically, what they call those layers: system APIs, process API, and experience APIs. So what they tell, like using those layers, you can create microservices where you might already have data stored in CRM or ERP or your homegrown systems or SQL and Oracle of the world. But like you cannot change those implementations, but you still can create the microservices based on top of those systems and still serve your customers and have agile implementation. I hope this makes sense.
So microservice, it's actually a building block, right? Microservice itself is not really a full application, not a business application. So for us, when we use microservice, we, for example, we may build for our phone activation. TracFone is very unique. We can activate your phone with AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, right? And then we try to decide, okay, which carrier are we going to activate your phone with? For that, we can build a microservice, right? But then we're simply, at that step, we're simply looking at, okay, that's one step during the activation process. That microservice is not a full activation. By definition, those microservice is one way to do SOA. Like by definition, those SOA services, they are supposed to be stateless, right? So you have to, but when you build a full business application, you have to keep the state somewhere. And so that's why I think when we think about microservice, people probably want to look into BPM, business process management. So in my opinion, combination of BPM and the microservice is going to be really, really powerful, because microservice can take care of the individual function calls, the steps, and then the BPM functionality actually orchestrate the full process together and allow you to actually perform a true business functionality, especially if you are, for a real business, your transaction, usually it's not just that you click the button and then your application finish in the next 2 seconds, right? So you submit an order, you click the button, that's actually where the order fulfillment process get kicked off. And from that point on, you have probably the order may need to go through interact with different microservices and different components. That may take hours, days. You need to be able to track the system, your application, your system state. So when we look at microservice, don't forget about the key components that allow you to track the system state and actually run your full application.
So this is everything more we are sharing. What your experience has been. What are the 1, 2, 3 main implementations we have done, so that others can know that. Okay, what is your experience?
Sure. For us, it's been very interesting. So we have an application we've built that we're still building 4 years later, right? That's the iterative nature of things. We really started out with really a traditional 2 or 3 tier model, and over time, as we've added additional features and capabilities, we've started breaking it up into various modules and services. I would probably consider it though hybrid versus really true microservices based architecture. I have no doubt that it will eventually go that way. So some of the things that are really encouraging us to do that are when we do like major refactors and the features, functionality, especially the user interface, the capabilities, and how it integrates. We need to maintain some level of continuity with existing users. So what we're really doing is we revamp a particular module. We'll introduce that as one or more services behind the scenes, and we'll leverage basically the same UI in a router to figure out which service should that particular tenant be routed to. So really, yeah, the short of it is it's something we're slowly moving towards.
So it's not really the go and start with the thousands at one time. Just start breaking.
Exactly. Yeah, and of course, I mean, technology's changed so much. If we were to build this same app starting today, it would definitely be a very much microservices first architecture. But as I mentioned at the beginning for the first question, it was an app that we wanted up and running very quickly. We didn't really spend a lot of time thinking too deep into the architecture. We thought more about the functionality. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
This time you want to go faster.
So basically, 2 years ago, we started a project on the social sector in Colombia. And basically, because of the scope and the type of the project, which was the core application of one organization integrating like 30, 40 organizations, all in all, we had to like put a big team there in the process. It was like a 50, 60 people team. So basically, the microservices part helped us in dividing the team into small teams, like scrum teams, like 6 people each team. So basically, each team was doing a piece. So that helped a lot, and that helped increase the velocity of the development. It was all in all like 60 people in the team, like divided into specific teams for doing that. All the integration was done with BPM. I agree with you. You have to like, okay, you split it in small parts, but then you integrate it so that you have like a unified view to the customer. That's very, very important. It integrates with other things which help a lot. For example, of course, the cloud is multi-tenant, so the multi-tenant thing helped a lot with deploying Google GCP. So basically, each of the 40 organizations, we were providing their core systems for these 40 organizations. So these 40 organizations have to see only their data, don't look the data of the others, of course, scale independently, be charged independently. You have to monitor what they use independently. So these are not features like specifically for microservices, but are related and are, of course, part of the GCP platform or any cloud. So these kind of practices were the ones that we put in place there. And I agree with you, it's like microservices is one of the parts. Many others is like the cloud, the security part, the VPN cloud part, well, etc. It's like a mix of all. But all in all, it's one of the tools, and it's very powerful. But you have to use it when it applies. I agree with you.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your implementation details. With this, obviously, and we will definitely go into questions a little bit in the end, if you allow me, please. But related to the questions, and we see already there's an interest and hands are being raised. So, really, what I guess, and there are students also sitting here, and people are interested in. If anybody is interested, they have to get started. Obviously, if they're doing already, then they know, right? But if somebody wants to get started on it, and it's an important development, we agree that this is the way things are going, right? What are like simple 1 to 3 steps that they can take in order to get started?
Thank you. So nobody's sleeping. Can I tell another joke? Okay. So, I was talking to a friend, he said, I hate doctors. I said, why do you hate doctors? It's a very, good profession, very respectful profession. He said, one doctor killed my cousin. I said, how did he kill him? He said he had a chest pain, he went to the doctor. And doctor said, you have nothing. 10 minutes later, he died. I said, because of heart attack? He said, no, traffic accident. I said, why are you blaming doctor? He said, he was the one who was driving the car. If you ask me how you can introduce microservices in your organization, if you don't do it right, you will be blaming other people or technologies or patterns, right? So maybe we can clap a little bit for that.
Yeah!
It's not easy to introduce a joke in a techie environment.
We have people from different areas, not all the techie people. So I can see that, and it's Thursday night, you are already there in the weekend. So if you ask me, what has worked for us, let's start with some POCs. Identify your internal champions within your organization or get help from outside, the people who know more. Start with POCs and then pilots, and then we do the actual implementation. And I feel like one of my friends said that maybe hybrid is the way to go. And that's what we see the value as, right? You cannot change the whole world in one night, right? So you have to take smaller pieces, see the value, and when you see the value, you can gain more or go back to the implementation. Services, microservices is not simple, right? Like everyone say, oh, okay, you just put it into a container and it will start working. Sometimes it does, right? But sometimes it not. When you ask about best practices, they say the state, the code, and discovery information need to be into the container, into the microservice. Now it is very difficult for us, right? Because if we put the data into the microservice and then they say use reliable dictionary instead of actual databases. So we are used to use ad hoc queries, log in and connect to SQL Server and Oracle and get all the data. That's very difficult. Everything needs to come through an interface. So there are challenges, get help. Have some champions. Nice. Yeah.
This one.
So microservice, it depends. I think it depends on your interest, right? You're interested in IT operation area or development area. I would say microservice. If you're in development area, you just want to give it a try. It's you're not trying to scale it, right? You try to do a POC. That's probably pretty easy to get started. As long as just read a few books and make sure you don't write something too complicated, and then you have a microservice. But if you are in the, you are into DevOps, for example, you're trying to build a microservice that's production ready, and you want to prepare the microservice to go into production to scale. And then I don't think there's any easy way to do it. So what you should look into it, there are lots of tools. Probably the most important thing is take a look at what's it called, the CNCF.io, Cloud Native Computing Foundation, right? So they have the full stack over there, very mature. That's developed by Google, by IBM, Lyft, and lots of the industry leaders. What they put together is that they have all the technologies that to help you to provide like all the different factors you need to worry about to build a successful microservice and deploy them to production, right? From that, you know, you have logging, tracing, you know, a dashboard, and service routing, and there's service discovery over almost everything you need to successfully deploy microservice into production. And that's something we're actively looking into, because the cloud service, the cloud native computing foundation, those things, it helps you not just to move towards microservice, also move towards cloud, right? And they go kind of hand in hand. And the best thing about the technology at CNCF.io is that it's not a cloud platform specific. You build a microservice and you run it in Kubernetes, and everything you build over there, you can run it in Amazon, you can pick it up and run it in Google. And tomorrow you think cloud service is not for you, you want to run it on your home computer at home or at work, you can pick up the same thing and run it at home on your computer.
So I think it's ultimately going to come down to what kind of learner you are. So maybe you're one that really wants to understand the inner workings of the technology. You know, that's kind of the style I have. So I'm not really interested so much in you know, a tool or a platform to do a lot of the legwork. You know, unfortunately, that comes at a cost, right? It's going to have a longer time to market. But I think in the end provides, you know, a really good foundation for learning lessons the hard way, making sound architecture decisions, and, you know, when the time arrives, being able to troubleshoot. Though I think, you know, there are, again, a number of you know, great platforms and models that could be leveraged as well to, you know, lessen your time to market. I think either way, and it's echoing a lot of the sentiment of the panel, is, you know, as I like to use a term, bias for action, right? So don't overthink it. Don't spend more time, you know, designing it. You know, get it out there. Figure out what works, what doesn't work, and iterate through that.
Maybe that's one of the goals of microservices. Not to like design too much, just take a small thing and then develop it.
Exactly, again, the agile concept.
Okay, where would I start? I would start with a very simple thing. Is to ask you, where are your pains in your organization? Where does it hurt? If it hurts in software delivery, software deployment, configuration management, in time to market of your new solutions, this kind of stuff, then if you have these pains, start away on microservices and DevOps. And the way I would start is to, following up with the jokes on doctors, I would go and get a doctor. Maybe it's the fastest route. Hey, come give me a diagnostic and assessment and tell me what to do. The doctors tell you, hey, you have these pains, okay, drink these pills. Yeah, maybe that's the easiest way to do it. If you have the doctor, if you feel you have the doctor inside your organization, ask these doctors, these champions, and you say, hey, what are my pains? What are my pills? The pills I have to see. So in that way you can, having an assessment, internal assessment, how to improve your internal processes, how to improve your internal application, and then set up a roadmap to do that. A roadmap in terms of people, things like trainings, stuff. A roadmap in terms of architecture, in refactoring your application, this kind of thing. But you can have that with a correct assessment, correct diagnostic of your application and your processes internal. Of course, if you have the paints already in place. If you don't have paints on that, don't do it. If nothing hurts, you are working all right.
So it really depends on what you really want to achieve, right? And look at your organization, look at your issues, and then select a solution accordingly. And with that, I want to go to the last question. A lot of hands have been raised. And that is to kind of sum it up. We have understood where we are coming from, why are we trying to divide into smaller pieces, what we have done, and then what others can do to it. It's really that, okay, we agree that it is something that has far-reaching impact, right? Where is the software industry going? Where are we heading to? And especially now that we understand the software is running the world, in all practical sense, even though the president is running the world. But where are we heading in software industry, and what is the change, and what is that far-reaching impact that looks like?
Not with a joke.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a joke, right?
Yes.
Somebody raised the question, raised the hand to ask the question. Like I was in a conference, and somebody raised the hand. I said, like, okay, go ahead, please. And the lady said, do I look fat? So basically, like I would give you the example, like companies are, I don't know, it's a not might be relevant example, but the example of Microsoft, right? So when you look at Microsoft, they are building their own software using their own infrastructure. For example, I have this service fabric, which is like the tool to manage and build, microservices. And what Microsoft has done, they build Office 365, which you might be using, Microsoft Dynamic, Logic App, API apps, functions, all those things based on that infrastructure. So they are making those services and offerings so strong that they are building what they say, they are eating their own dog food. So that shows the maturity of those things, right? And as I mentioned earlier, like start with a pilot or POC and then do the actual implementation hybrid. Once you're comfortable, you can go to the actual implementation. And I also want to thank SIF and everyone else for giving this opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
So no matter which industry you are in, the world is changing faster and faster, and to adapt to that change, you're going to have you're going to see lots of microservices. But microservice, it's something easy to get started, but probably you're going to need lots of talent. So everything, like most of the technology stuff, it's technology itself doesn't solve the problem, right? You have people, process, and technology. So people is one key thing. If you don't have people properly trained, don't have enough experience with microservice, you're going to run into big problems. And microservice, in my opinion, is one of those things. Don't do it at home, right? So if you want to do microservice, unless you have very talented people in-house, right? So I'm actually the only one here. I'm not doing consulting, right? But I'm telling you, it's one of those things. If you can,
you're telling the truth.
Yeah, I'm telling the truth. I'm telling you, I don't trust my own organization or self. We can keep the people. Like for example, we lost one of our one of the guys I hired to Cohesive, right? And once people get trained, once they have the skill, they have the technology, and usually they move on, right? So if you are trying to do a microservice, it's a lot harder than just building a standalone, monolithic application. I'm not talking about those huge ones. For a small development team, you probably just don't even think about microservice or monolithic. You just build something and run it, right? When you really need to scale, that's when, if you really need to scale up your development efforts, right? You truly need help.
That's a good point. That first we run something, right, and then make it micro.
Yes.
So I think what I'm going to say is actually counter to the answer I had for the last question. So the direction it's going in is more abstraction. So less thinking about how the thing works behind the scenes, how it scales, how it's resilient. Focus more on the output, the code and design and logic needed to get to that output. So things like serverless, massive, right? So no longer having to, even think about, Java container or, processes or OS, gobbledygook or database scaling or any of that. That's all inherently taken care of by the platform this stuff runs on. Alongside that is also the automation aspect. So in order to effectively develop and test and deploy this in a manner that's congruent with microservices and congruent with abstracted services, I need to step away from the levers and the buttons, and again, focus on leveraging a deployment process, a deployment pipeline, a deployment tool that's going to take care of a lot of that for me.
So, answering the question, where this is going, where this is all going, my opinion is very, very simple, and I think it's like very intuitive. It's like, at the end of the day, IT is going cloud, anyway it's going to the cloud. So I think that all the architectures, all the technical stuff will evolve on the face of the cloud. Because at the end of the day, when you hire something on the cloud, it's by far much simpler to give some business value to either to your internal customers or your end customers at the end. So if it's simpler that way, the cloud it's the way. So at the end, the technical stuff going behind will be aligned to the cloud, will be aligned to the technical stuff that is like provided by the cloud providers, either Microsoft, either Amazon, or any of them. So I agree with you. They will put much more automation on that. At the end of the day, we need to be more efficient with less people.